Youth and Ed meeting. We have a couple guests tonight, excited about. We'll jump right in. The first of which is from Freedom Youth, Joshua Lopez, who's the Executive Administrator of the Freedom Youth Family Justice Center, is going to do a quick presentation for us tonight. Joshua, can you hear me?
So we have our speakers here with us. We have Monique Riley, who's the CEO, along with Woods.
Okay, great. Welcome. Can you add them to the agenda, Jen?
Sure. Let me go ahead. Monique, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. This evening, thank you all for having me. This evening, Joseph Riley will actually be doing the presentation. Josh was not with us.
Okay.
So it can be added, please.
Okay, great. Welcome.
Alrighty, Joseph Riley, I muted you. So whenever you're ready, can you hear us?
Yes, absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, are you ready?
Yes, we are ready.
Okay, great. Um, once again, my name is Joseph Riley. I'm board chairman for Freedom Youth Family Justice Center. Once again, I'm joined by Kamal Woods. He's also one of our interns, and then we have our founder and CEO, Monique Riley. What Freedom Youth does, as a whole, we are an anti-human trafficking and domestic violence organization. And the word youth um in our organization is very we really stick to that. So I'll briefly give you our mission and our vision, and then I'll tell you what we do with the youth. Um, our mission for Freedom Youth Family Justice Center is um is to empower, strengthen, and stabilize victims and survivors of human trafficking and domestic violence by providing comprehensive support services. All right. So what we do for the youth, we have a program that's great, super duper great. It's our Color Me Advocacy program, and what this does is not only do we teach our youth of the dangers and of human trafficking and teach them how to be aware of human trafficking, but we also empower them to use their voice, to use their abilities to spread this awareness, and not only just about this awareness, but also any injustices that they may come across as young adults. Use their abilities in regards to writing, in regards to poetry, in regards to singing, and spoken word, any of those things. We give them those tools that way they can uplift themselves and go out there and share the information amongst their peers and anyone else who's willing to listen. During COVID, we attack the airwaves as many ways as we can through social media, through TikToks, do anything to spread this awareness. But mostly we go outside and we do public advocacy. Um, we make sure that everybody's safe. Go follow the CDC rules and guidelines, and grab the bullhorn and make sure that they're making noise about this stuff the way they can by doing performances and just really just um spreading awareness as much as they can. Um, it's been a um, very successful thing that we've been pushing, and also the one key thing that they can take from this is that every goal and everything that they learn within this organization they can use as young adults as they go into the future, as it gears them into college, as it gears them into high school, as it gears them into being an adult. All these strong assets and everything that they've learned to empower themselves to be the voice, to be the future. Let them know that they are the future, and without them, that we have none. And I always coach them about this, and so I'm always reminding them. So that's one thing they can take from our organization, um, and this Color Me Advocacy program. Um, I hope I'm sharing everything I need to share, Monique. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but if you can jump on, please. and elaborate a little bit more?
Yes. So actually, you said everything that I would have said. We have done a lot more work around making sure that people are aware of what is happening in their community, um, especially during like the COVID-19, where we saw a spike of children that were being um, selected and recruited during, COVID-19. There was a spike in recruitment around human trafficking. We did some work with NYU to kind of like create surveys to find out how women were doing, how our young girls were doing in the community during this time. And we found that there was a spike, a major spike that was happening where they were being recruited online. And not only online, we were also seeing a spike in peer-to-peer recruitment. So that's something I would want to throw out there. As for what we are going to be coming up with for the summer months, we will be doing a lot of work in your area, Community Board 1, where we'll be bringing out our youth to kind of assess the scenes and areas, just to kind of find out what people know about human trafficking, to keep them, alert on, what it is, how it actually happens. And so we're looking to expand more on our research and making sure that people are understanding how it affects families, what it looks like, because a lot of people think that human trafficking is just a form of, being abducted. That's the first thing that we hear when we ask people what is human trafficking. And so we wanted to make it our business to make sure that people know that it's not just that. A lot of this is happening on school grounds. A lot of it is happening in homes. A lot of it is happening through gangs and affiliation and things of that nature. And so we're just spreading awareness through our youth's talents, where they're going in and teaching through peer-to-peer education with others. So that's some things that we are aiming to do during the summer. A couple of initiatives that we're working on, and just spreading more awareness in everyone's communities.
Thanks so much to both of you. How can people reach you? What can we do to help you get the word out?
Absolutely. So the best way to reach us is by, you can, visit any social media platform. On Instagram, we're located as FY Family Justice Center. On Freedom Youth, on Facebook, we're actually recognized as in the Freedom Youth Family Justice Center. You can actually visit our website, which is freedomyouthnyc.com, or you can just email us at info@freedomyouthnyc. You can contact us by phone at 929-367-4754. And you can also reach out to us, by word of mouth. You can visit us down at 433 Broadway, which is where we're located, 433 Broadway, New York, New York, 10013. Ways that you guys can help us. Honestly, we're looking to kind of get people involved in a lot of our community efforts at parks. We're looking to put on more events, more family oriented engagements, where we're bringing the family together to learn together through arts and crafts, through theatrics and performances. As Joe mentioned, we do a lot of performance-based around the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Manhattan to kind of educate people on the different social issues, not just human trafficking, but, there's issues with teen dating violence. And so we've done a lot of work around that. We've hosted a lot of platforms, and we've hosted a lot of events, where people can actually talk, in panels where people can talk about these issues openly, and kind of just come up with real solutions. So we're working alongside that. We're also working with elected officials to kind of help, with a couple of initiatives and laws that we're trying to put in place that will really help to educate our youth and help our families.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any
Yes,
questions? Anyone have any questions for Joseph or Monique? Jen, could you, Monique, can I ask you to put that, your phone number and email into the chat if you could? I'm not sure we
Yes.
got it. That way everybody can access it who's here. And Jen, if you could grab it so that I can announce it at the full board, that would be great.
Right, for
Sure.
sure. And we could also provide posts that, or ways to reach out to your organization via our weekly board newsletter. We have that sent out weekly. You can also ask our office to publish that information on our board website.
Thanks so much. Thanks again for coming. Okay, great. Moving along, if nobody has any questions, to Kamau, who we missed last month. We're so happy you got to make it tonight to talk about Black Gotham experience. Welcome.
Hello, hello. Good evening. How are we?
Good.
All right, fantastic. Just to kind of get a sense, I know we're used to talking to screens. Who is present from I'm calling it your committee because you're like chairing it, but who's on your committee that's present for youth?
We have, I think, just about the whole committee tonight.
Okay.
Darren's running behind. I don't know if he's on here yet, but so you should have
I
8.
just joined. Yes, good. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? There should be
Hello.
8 of us here.
Okay. Got it. All right, awesome. So is it possible for, I think that can I share, I think that we talked about me sharing something, but that was requested.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I
Yes.
think I'm unable right now to share.
Say that again.
I think right now I'm unable to share.
Okay.
I don't have, yeah, there you go. I can do it now. I've been
Okay.
given the ability to share my screen now. All right,
Anything happens, we can circle back as well. So just give me a heads up, okay?
have it. Can everybody see what I have here? Can you see my screen, Tricia?
I can.
Okay,
Mhm.
cool. So what is an ideal amount of time for me to do this and have time for conversation, discussion?
5 to 10,
Okay, cool.
workable.
Yeah, so I guess where I'll start is Black Gotham experience. We celebrate the impact of the African diaspora in New York City. We highlight the archival problem, which is, if you're a history nerd like myself and you're going into the archives and you're going into the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, you'll often see that the African diaspora is told from the story of those who were enslaving people of African descent and colonizing their lands and taking indigenous lands. And so a lot of the records don't reflect the perspective or the humanity of people whom stories want to highlight. And so what we're doing is using scholarship and aesthetics as a way to breathe life into these archives and create new bodies of work that can create new conversations. And we've been doing this since 2010. And it just so happens that CB1, in many respects, is the heartbeat of these stories because so much has happened in Lower Manhattan, even before New York City was created in 1664. Going forward, this was a major scene for British New York, as well as the beginning of our republic. Our first capital was here in New York City. A lot of important things took place in what is now CB1 in the 19th century, throughout the Civil War, before and after. And so part of what I'm interested in doing today is reaching out and getting on the same page about the importance of impacting the public square. We've done a lot of walking tours in the past 10 years, but I think that part of what young people are seeing, as well as people who are not so young, is that our environments are not really in dialogue with the values that we're saying are important. And here is a definition. This might take up 1 minute to go through, but I think it's worth really getting into the whole idea that, history is not something that is exclusively what happened in the past. It's not a set of unbiased facts, so to speak. It's a complex context to control the creative process of truth making, meaning that a lot of times what you have as an archive or an exhibition or a street name or a building name or a statue isn't giving you the full picture of the environment that you're in. So it's not just this innocent recollection of what happened, but more or less, how the past is very much present. And so part of what we're looking at doing is looking at statues like this, which you probably have seen before. One of our walking tours, we stop here and really just point out that this gorgeous statue is really a celebration of white supremacy and the taking of indigenous lands. How you have this woman stepping on this important Mayan god with a Native American chief being more or less subdued with his corn taken, and then like the white male with the tools is being released to manifest destiny, so to speak, which is around the same time this particular sculpture was done. The image of Africa is the only nude statue in front of this particular building where she is forlorn. Looks like she has been abused. The lion and the sphinx are scratched and asleep. And so regardless of what we're saying on TV or in textbooks, the public square is often screaming out that, you know, Black lives don't matter, or that Black people are meant to be subdued, or people that are American indigenous are not equal to white people. And so I think it's important, and we've learned this through our process of 10 years of telling stories in the streets, is that at some point in time, we need to begin to reconcile the distance between what's in textbooks, what's in supplemental material brought in by teachers, and what's actually happening in the streets. And once you can begin to impact the streets, you also can begin to dial that information into the classrooms as well. And just briefly, a lot of how Black Gotham Experience got started is rooted in a conversation that I had with a student who was in middle school in 2008. And anybody out there who's a parent, who's ever taught in a classroom, young people will keep you honest. They will ask you questions that you haven't thought about. And I think it's important to listen, not come over for you as somebody who's got it all figured out, but somebody who's learned the importance of listening and paying attention. And what I hear from young people a lot of times is this history is unknown to them, unknown to their kitchen tables. And one of the quotes I got from a student I once gave a tour to was just saying, you know, he loved the walking tour, but what was really fantastic is what he learned. And what he went on to say is that he thought it was so cool that what he learned about Black history in New York, his dad didn't know when he went home to have dinner. He was the smart person at the table. So kids are ready for this, but kids often are walking down the streets like everybody else and don't quite see how the public space and what they're learning don't connect. And what people really want to see is themselves reflected in history. And that's a big part of why we're using aesthetics. Art isn't necessarily just meant to be pretty or to be collected or to be purchased. Art is a very important part of the human experience, how we consume and also represent what's important to us. And so when we have such a, you know, dearth or black hole of images of people of color or indigenous people to the Americas and also women, I think that what we're telling people is these lives are not as important, and that's something that we're going to have to address. And I'm hoping to continue to engage with people on community boards, in particular CB1, to start to address those matters through public and private partnerships, to put the pedagogy into the public square and make it possible for people to learn while they're walking to and fro leisurely, but also use technology as a way to augment that ability to see what's happening in the street, but also access it online and then bring it into the classroom. Here goes a number of places we are in CB1 doing different walking tours. Here is a map we often use to show the imprint of Black people who helped establish things like the Wall Street, Broadway, and Bowery, and the Fort Amsterdam at the tip of the island. And I think that it's important to like not just move quickly, like skate past the New Amsterdam chapter. I think a lot of times people hear that, yeah, it was New Amsterdam, then it became New York. But it's like, but why is it New Amsterdam? You know, why did the Dutch come over here in the first place? And you begin to open up an entire new world of history when you talk about the reason why the Dutch were at war with the Spanish and the Portuguese, and how the Portuguese and the Spanish initially became traffickers of human bodies. And so a lot of times our stories start with the American Revolution in 1775, 1776, and you miss out on so much potent world history, but it's right there in Lower Manhattan, in the thumbprints, in the grooves of the streets, and even in the names that we used to call things like New Amsterdam, or even all the places where Stuyvesant's name exists today. I don't have enough time to get into this particular slide, so I'm gonna skip it. But what I will say is that, you know, we're living in a time where people are having these kind of conversations about police brutality and social justice. But I think that part of we have to understand is the public square is an important place for us to begin to address these needs. The conversation's one thing, but then we have to get into action and create new culture. And I'm leaving this slide up here for questions or answers, because this is a recent project we did. You know, Black Gotham Experience is part of a studio that I've created that is a for-profit studio. We're not a nonprofit. We are able to survive by doing selling commissions, by selling tickets, et cetera. We do have important partners and supporters. And one of our recent commissions was at the World Trade Center. It was the Land of the Blacks exhibition. And a lot of what brought this on was the fact that we were able to pass a resolution with Community Board 2 to acknowledge the fact that there were Black landowners in New York City before New York City ever existed. And those lands are also unmarked. And so going back to how I started, CB1, Lower Manhattan, the financial district, is such an important part of New York City's heart. But right now, there's so much that's missing from the conversation. And, we're happy to have the African Burial Ground, Triumph of the Human Spirit, Thurgood Marshall Courthouse, David Dinkins Building. I just think that we have to continue to mark these spaces and tell stories that broaden not only the narrative, but also just give people more opportunities, like that fifth grader, to go home and be more informed than their parents, perhaps because they learned something new that day. With that said, I'm happy to take questions, comments, or anything. Crickets.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Jeff Myhawk. I'm a member of Community Board One. I wanted to thank you for your work.
Awesome. Thank you.
I found what you just did there really remarkable and excellent. I'm a school teacher, high school teacher at Millennium.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited by your program and looking to learn more about it and share it. And is this a curriculum that you're developing as well? Is this something you see yourself partnering with schools?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about how you see this getting into the lives of young people, or all people, but especially young people.
Yes, definitely. We have been, this is our fourth year working with Lehman Preparatory School. One of their teachers got hip to us through an article that was published in the Atlantic in 2017. And they have consistently brought me into the school to talk to their high school students, to give a walking tour and a follow-up right away. I've also, somebody's like, so may know who you are, maybe not. I'll just talk over it. We've also worked at City School of the Arts, which is on Broadway. Also 3 years consecutively, their students have taken a walking tour for Sarah's Fire, and then they've created entire bodies of work. They've written songs, they've written poetry, they've made paintings and drawings. And young people really latch on to these stories because when we talk about, Black women in 1712 that are part of these rebels fighting against the British who are, tyrannical, they're hearing the same type of thing that George Washington had his animus about. But in this situation, they're hearing about like a young Black woman that also armed herself and fought for freedom. And they're like, well, hey, I'm a young woman, I'm a lady, that connects with me. And so schools connect to it. But I think that part of what I've seen is you can go the curriculum route and you could pass things off into schools or be sought after by certain teachers. But I think that when you begin to impact the public square and use technology to back those things up, then you can put that into the classroom, but also it can be a field trip. It also can be online. So teachers have the curriculum right there. And so in my experience, and I'm also a certified educator from Pennsylvania that moved to New York in 2006, is that if you begin to impact the public environment, then you really begin to have this exponential effect where you're not just affecting one classroom, you're affecting society as a whole, even those moments where it's maybe like, father and daughter taking a walk and daughter's like, what is that? So I think that, yes, curriculum, but I think the curriculum needs to be something that is more available for people who are just having general passing by and can learn. And that can make New York City even more awesome than what it is.
Could you say how that works? You use your example of a father and daughter taking a walk. My school is right near the museum that you were deconstructing so disturbingly and so perfectly there. So what does that look like for how did someone access that way of looking at those statues through your program?
Yeah, well, Open House in New York commissioned us to create a walking tour that's called Before Belonging. It's free. It's on our website, blackgotham.com/Before Belonging. And we start that walk right there at those statues and walk up toward the African Burial Ground. We're also a part of Lower Manhattan Cultural Council's River to River Festival for the third year. And we have this thing called As Above, So Below, where Black Gotham Experience is partnering with Rodney Leon, the architect of the African Burial Ground. And we're working on creating a way to have the content and the history and the messaging that is available online and also through walking tours and through podcasts. We just launched it this year and we're still fundraising for it. And so part of what we're looking at doing is finding ways to use technology so people can go to the African Burial Ground and also get use like an app or go online and find more information and work in partnership with National Park Services to do that. I know Jimmy's been here before. So we want to work with what's available, but also we think that it's important to add as well. And so, I don't know if we have time to get into all the different examples. There are examples in the world where this is happening. And ironically, I think there's more of it happening in the South than in the North, because the North is waking up to the fact that slavery is not a Southern phenomenon, neither is racism. But I think that there's more institutions in the South working on using public markers and technology to tell these stories, and people are doing above Virginia.
Well, I'll pass on to other people comments, but I would be very happy to work more with you or learn more from you. If you see my name, you can see my name there. Can someone mute themselves? You can see my name there. It's that name at Gmail.
Okay.
And I would love to, talk with you more. I'm really intrigued by what you're doing. I think it's great.
Awesome. And the best way to do it is as a community, and I think that's one of the things we've learned through the African diaspora and through slavery and abolition, is that nobody does it on their own. These are big problems, and it takes more than one person.
So it's always an honor to talk to a historian and a scholar, and it's obviously a young scholar, what you are. And I just put in a plug to you, and the community board and groups can work with you, but I'll put in a plug for you that you may not. If you go on your website, you can become a member.
Right. Thank you.
Of this. Don't worry. Yeah, you can become a member of this experience and help fund it. And that is a grassroots way of changing the public square. When tourists return to New York and our kids see it, they understand. So thank you for that. And I plan on becoming a member.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that tremendously. And there's at least 8 people who are part of CB1 who are members of Black Gotham Experience. And we greatly appreciate the community and the support. And I've said it before, one of our supporters start a membership. I was like, for what? They're like, because I've done all your walking tours and I want to do more.
Yeah.
And the membership saved us last year in April and March, when we had no idea what was going to happen next. And before we knew it, when after Memorial Day 2020, a very important historic weekend in America, social justice became the thing people wanted to talk about. And we began to give a lot more conversations. I might seem rehearsed a little bit, but I've been talking to my computer for a good year now. And membership helped us get to that place where we were able to get more traction and talk to companies all over the country, all over the world.
That's great to hear. Thanks for mentioning that. And we should make sure to spread the word about that, and also, connect you with our local schools. I mean, it's a great opportunity that would be to have you come and present, and maybe even do a walking tour, like you said, as part of a field trip.
Indeed.
Really, very much a community that would be great partners. We have, our 6 schools and high schools and lots of space, and a lot of history. So we really appreciate you coming. Is there anyone else?
Well, I'll just say one thing before things. I know there's more people who have slots on today's schedule. I know I've been the community board my second time, and I always appreciate making time in my schedule for this. I would love to come back sometime in the summer and give you an update on how things go after we launch our As Above, So Below project next month in June, and present more ideas and see if we can continue to gain traction and find ways to connect dots and hopefully get the blessings of CB1 for how we can, push this forward.
We would love that. Anytime.
Fabulous. Thank you all.
Thanks so much for coming. So nice meeting you.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right. Moving along, Judy Levine, who is the board director for the Church Street School for Music and Art. Hey, Judy, welcome. Jen, can you help her unmute? Great, thanks.
Perfect. Okay, let me see if I can start my video. There we go. Not that I'm sending a video. Okay, it's not especially visual, but at least you can see me. So yes, I'm the chair of the board of directors of Church Street School for Music and Art, and I think many of you may have heard the news that our co-founder and still executive director Lisa Eckler-Flores is retiring. The projected timing is that she will be leaving at the end of the summer, her position. And this has been in the works actually for a couple of years. We've been having conversations, and the whole board has been involved in planning. We are thrilled for her. This is something she's really ready for, and she's not disappearing. She's still going to be teaching, and she has ideas about a book she wants to write and teacher training. And it's really time for her to give to the field everything that she knows and learns, and let Church Street and somebody else run Church Street. So the board is involved in the search. We're quite active. We have hired a search consultant who has experience in the community music field. And she have been sourcing candidates. At this point, I believe we have over 40 applications, 17 of which she characterized as of interest. And she's already conducted 11 interviews. So she's pretty sure we'll end up with 5 or 6 very strong finalist candidates. And we haven't met any of them. We've seen their resumes. We haven't met any of them yet, but that's the next process. Is there will be a series of interviews. The staff will meet the final candidates, so the senior staff, and we're thrilled. It's a big moment for the school. We are quite aware. I don't know if most of you know that, or some of you know that I'm a nonprofit management specialist, so I certainly understand what founder transitions are like and everything that they entail. And we are doing this carefully, which is not to say that we won't have all of the issues of a founder transition, but we are aware, and we are doing this joyfully and mindfully. And we welcome the community's input. Applications are open until, I guess, this Friday. And I don't think we're going to extend them, because the sense is that we have enough really strong candidates. We are not necessarily looking for someone who has run a community music school before, but we do have a list of sort of characteristics and experience that we think somebody can grow into this position from. Abby, do you want to talk a little bit? I brought our director of development to speak from the staff perspective. It's Abby Levine.
Let's see. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
All right. Hello. I'm Abby Levin, Director of Development at Church Street School. Thank you, Trisha, and the Community Board for all that you do and all that you continue to do for the school and the community. We, as Judy said, we're really excited for how, how much this offers to not only Lisa as an educator, but to the school, and how we can move forward and grow. And we're really prepared for this. I feel like we've all known at some point in that we were going to have to meet this challenge and this transition. And I really am excited that it offers the staff an opportunity to work and partner with the board, with Judy's leadership. And we're all excited for what the future holds, and hope that, we can be involved with Community Board 1 in the future in many active, wonderful ways. So that's what I have to say on behalf of the staff. And I'd also, would it be all right if we spoke for a second about our block party coming up on June 6th?
Sure.
All right. Well, many of you may have gone to The Happening, which is our yearly family block party in front of the school. And of course, we had to press pause last year, and we're super, super excited to bring it back this year. It's going to be on Sunday, June 6th from 12 to 4 p.m. All ages. Entrance is free. And there will be a full solid lineup of music, everything from jazz to opera performances, student performances, faculty, friends. We have our students and our art faculty are imagining amazing large-scale art projects that's going to be outside as well as inside the building. FYI, this is masked and safe and properly socially distanced. But we're also including local businesses who want to be a part, just, share their information. We welcome everybody and everybody's involvement. Let's see, what else did I miss? And the art gallery, many of the art galleries will be in participation as well up and down White Street. So, and more news to come. So churchstreetschoolvirtual.com is where you can get more information. And we hope to see you there. And thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much for coming, both of you. We, as you know, are your biggest fans. We're thrilled for Lisa.
Thank you
And
so much.
I know you'll call on us if there's anything that we can do for you along the way. It sounds like you have it under control. So in the meantime, we'll just be happily your guests. But if you can,
we'll definitely be back with the new director in the fall to
Yes.
take them around.
Yes.
And introduce them to all the players and the people that are core to our success and vitality and connection to the community.
That would be
We have
great.
a whole offboarding and a whole onboarding, each of which is actually a year. We're in the middle of the offboarding right now.
Absolutely. We will be here for you whenever that is. And if there's any way we can help connect you to the local schools, there's so much change going on. I know that you'll let us know.
I sure will.
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you
Okay.
both for
Thanks
coming.
again.
Okay.
Okay, so moving right along, I was hoping to have an update on the Trinity Place School. I'm just looking at my phone to see if Mike Marsola wrote me back, and he hasn't. So I have not heard anything otherwise. The last thing I heard from them is that they had resumed construction after it was stopped for COVID, if you all will recall last summer. It began again a couple months later. We heard that they were working overtime so that they could make it. All of it was going along nicely, and then the comment about zoning came up. So I wrote Mike just to see if we were on schedule, because it's unusual that we have not heard from the DOE regarding zoning, rezoning. The CEC had, and they reached out to me to ask if we could wait and begin that process in the fall. And I wanted to bring that to the committee for discussion. I let her know that, as most of you know, those elections are going on right now. There's going to be a turnover at the CEC, both at CEC District 2 and also at the high school level. And so it might make sense for us to let that settle and to have the new committee get their legs before we launch into this zoning process, which is always fun times for the community. But it will need to happen. I think that Chancellor's regulations is that it's usually a year out. So we do have a little time. And so they wanted to just see if we would discuss it as a committee and agree that we would not launch it now, that we would wait until September so that we could see what the registers look like at that point, what impact COVID was having at that point on our, schools and their enrollment. So anybody have any thoughts, comments, concerns, anything they'd like to share on the topic? It'll be back. I just wanted to bring it up because people were talking about it, and I always like to make sure that we talk about it as a committee instead of splintered off communication one-on-one. No one?
Hi,
Tricia?
Tricia. This is Rosa.
Oh,
I've got
Rosa,
my
I
hand
see.
up.
Sorry, I missed you.
No problem. Could you elaborate more on what the options are in terms of zoning, or what you mean?
So whenever a school opens, you have about a year out, you go through a rezoning process because we're putting a new school right in the middle of two zoned elementary schools, which are PS 276 and Peckslet. So this new school will have zoning lines that we, the CEC of District 2 will inevitably be the ones to decide. But as a community board, we weigh in heavily on this, obviously, because our boots are on the ground. And we know that 276 has been historically overcrowded. This school actually was cited as a release valve for them, primarily, not entirely, when they were just perpetually and relentlessly over-enrolled. Some of you will remember that they had wait lists over 120 kids due to the building in Lower Battery Park City. We also had kids making the trip across the highway, which concerned a lot of parents, because kids east of the highway, the West Side Highway in Greenwich South are zoned for 276. So Trinity really was cited in the hopes that we could focus on the kids that were east of the highway so that children that young were not making that commute. It does not necessarily mean it has to look that way. It's just at the inception, those were the discussions. So right now we have a school of 478, which is, I think it's 4 classes on a grade. We have PS 50 is going to open the school. So it's going to have a 1 class per grade school opening the school itself. So that will leave 3 classrooms on a grade for other children in the surrounding neighborhood. And so as we will begin our discussions, and for today's purposes, we can just start thinking about it. Certainly if somebody wants to ask questions or give their comments on, you know, what their thoughts are, we welcome them today. We won't be passing any resolutions today, but we are starting the process with the intention of moving into it more firmly at our September meeting, maybe even October, so that we can really see what the registers look like. And you know, be able to make better projections about what our, you know, numbers are going to look like throughout Lower Manhattan, which will, of course, then inform what's most logical from a zoning standpoint for Trinity Place. So right now, that's where we are. Anybody else has any questions?
Tricia, that's exactly right. Waiting until September, October to see where it is. But contrary to common thinking now, too bad we don't have our school overcrowding task force anymore, where principals reported their enrollments each month. Contrary to what people are thinking, my information is that the schools are receiving many kindergarten enrollments. And that it is not doomsday for Lower Manhattan and people moving out of the city. I think that and that's why October. Eric, what's Eric's last name? Who made the school overcrowding numbers? They're writing them off too soon because it's conceived. Yeah, Eric Greenleaf. So it is very, and I think October, September, October. But it would be nice if this committee could get real data before that meeting.
Well, I mean, I don't know that we're going to until, which is our next item, until we really understand what the fall is going to look like from a COVID standpoint. I mean, I'm really concerned because we still, the DOE still hasn't dealt with the ventilation systems at most of our schools that had problems this time last year.
I could report to you that there might be some people not coming back, but kids are coming back this week and they continue to come back. And we can only go by enrollment numbers. I mean, I think that's a safe that we don't know if they're enrolled, if they're not going to show up in September because they're going to still be worried about it. But, you know,
Right.
worth exploring.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't want the job of projecting what our registers are going to look like come fall. I mean, if we only have 60% of teachers vaccinated and we don't have children under 16 vaccinated come September, you know, I think that we are definitely more vulnerable in terms of going back to school. So
why do you think 60%
so anyway,
of teachers, why do you think only 60% of teachers, I'd be interested in hearing, Jeff, are going to be vaccinated?
Well, as of right now, it's 70 if you include all school work. It's hard to get the data, so don't quote me. But the last time I saw the data, it looked like about 65% of teachers had been vaccinated.
I'll tell you about my staff. They're all getting vaccinated, and they're younger and they're not teachers.
Right.
I heard a disturbing thing on the radio this afternoon saying that as of right now, they're debating about whether to require vaccination for students, but that's too early to decide. But there's no decision right now about requiring teacher vaccination. So that's very concerning.
Well, I could just, since we're on the topic, I've been thinking a lot about this these days. The two categories fall into different, one is employment law. Jeff, if you're a teacher, you're my employee, and I may not be able to require you to be vaccinated. But if you're a student at NYU and coming into the classroom, while the professor doesn't have to be vaccinated, I could require the student to be vaccinated. I don't know if you could do it for under 18, like you do for tuberculosis vaccines and other, not tuberculosis, if you step on a nail, whatever that was. So we'll see. I'm optimistic.
I have a question coming in from the PS150 parent, if you don't mind me reading it. It's our understanding that parents of from the parents of PS150 that the new school will be a choice school and not a zone school. I guess you're saying at this point that it just is undecided.
Well, we were not told it was a choice school. So unless they have information that I don't, we were contacted by the CEC regarding rezoning, which would not happen if it was a choice school. So I'd be interested to hear where they got that information.
Actually, she has her hand up, but I think she might be having technical difficulties. I'm not sure.
Please unmute her. Is it Jaro?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. This is Jaro Chung. I'm one of the parents at PS150. And the information actually came from the principal when we discussed the schools. I guess now going back to 2019, before the pandemic, when we were told of the plan for the new school, and that the intention of the new school is that it will remain as a choice school, and that once the PS150 school moves from the current location to the new location, that the children will be quote unquote grandfathered in as a one class per grade. And then the grades that are coming in under them, so say the new kindergarten class would have 2 classes per grade, and that's how the school would grow. And that so that was sort of our understanding of how the new school would look like. So it did surprise me a little bit to hear you say that it's a zone school and that has to be defined in September.
Well, I mean, we were contacted by the CEC. I was contacted by the CEC. They told me that the DOE had reached out about rezoning. They requested that I bring it to this meeting, that we delay it. That all of those actions lead me to believe that this will be a zoned school. However, it doesn't confirm that that will be the case. But it's important to say that PS 150 sat in PS 234's zone. So there was a zone school in where PS 150 was, which is why it was made a choice school. It was a very specific school model at one section of grade. It was for a kid that wanted that thing. They didn't have a gym. It was a different curriculum, different math. So there was this opportunity for parents that were zoned for PS 234 to instead pick 150. An overwhelming amount of the kids that went to 150 lived within a close walk of 150. It has not always been the way with 150. When 234, shortly after 234 opened and 150 opened, there were a lot of kids coming from other neighborhoods to PS 150. But over time, because of the overcrowding in Lower Manhattan, the school became predominantly full of kids from actually mostly Tribeca, but Lower Manhattan in general. So when we say choice school, it's just important to say that out loud, that yes, it was a choice as an option to the zone school. And where it's going now, I have not heard that it would be a similar thing, so that if you were zoned for PS 276, you could instead, you could be guaranteed a seat at 276, but then you could opt to go into the lottery for the Trinity Place School. That certainly would be a legitimate thing to do based on our numbers right now, but it is not what I've heard is happening. So does that answer it more clearly?
No, thank you for that information. I mean, to be honest, I'm confused than I was before.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, Tricia, this is
it's
Wendy.
because it's a district school. You know, we do see children from, you know, not just in the Lower Manhattan, but Chelsea and Midtown East and other parts. And so I'm just surprised to hear that the Trinity School would be a zone school, not a district-wide school.
So Tricia, this is Wendy, and hi everybody. As some people know, my kids are now in college and high school, but I was the PTA president of PS 150 when the first announcement that it was going to be relocated the first time. And I certainly have been involved with the community board and everything else in the second announcement. And during the second announcement, when they found the Sims spot, the Trinity Place, it is the disappointing thing to me was that it's no longer going to be a choice school once they move. So obviously where they are right now in Tribeca, it's the same as it ever was. But once it moves down to the new space, it will then take classes based on the zone. Now, I think it's a great idea, Tricia, right now in the interim, since they're going to have a lot of space in that building, to make it available to any overcrowded schools like 276. I think we should say that's a great idea, but I think the model that was explained, and it was hard for those of us who love PS 150 as much as I do, and I also ran Taste of Tribeca for 4 years, so that's a whole nother ball of wax. What does it mean going forward? But the disappointing thing was that there was no way it was going to remain as a choice school once it moves. But I think in the interim, we should absolutely advocate for, there will be some people that will want to come across the way and come to the less overcrowded school. But just so parents know, Margaret Chin and all the other electeds that were involved in that process, we brought that topic up multiple times. And ultimately, it was decided that once the move happens, it will be a zone school.
Yeah, so it's also, you know, thank you, Wendy, for that. And I think that, you know, the reason it was a choice school was because it was sitting in another school zone and because it was a very special school model. It's the school model is going to change because it's no longer going to be one section on a grade. Now, having said that, and having the fact be that PS 150, I want to say, and Wendy, you might know this more than I do. I want to say it's 85% kids from Lower Manhattan. They certainly get the priority.
So what happened? So when Kendall, who is now a junior in college, hello, you could come from a very wide range. And by the time my son, who's now a junior in high school, you really needed to be, much more from Lower Manhattan. And then just a year or two after that, you literally had to be in Community Board 1 to apply to the school because of the overcrowding situation. Right. Now, I think people applied, got in, and then moved. Like that happens all the time with 234 too. But you had.
I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, I think that once you're in the school, you can move to Brooklyn and still come to 234. Exactly. Or if you have a sibling, or there's some other things like that, but you can't get into the school anymore unless you have one of these legacy with a sibling or an address in Community Board 1. That's my understanding when it's been under, so overcrowded. Not to say there aren't people coming from Brooklyn, but they started, or they should have started legally as a resident of Community Board 1.
Right. I have heard that they take some variances, but there aren't many. Yes, Rosa?
Yeah. I mean, I just from my son, in his classroom, he does have somebody from Chelsea who we were in the playground with today, another classmate from Brooklyn, and I believe they've always been in Brooklyn as far as I know, but I haven't.
And it could be that if a spot opens up in 3rd grade, they need to fill the 3rd grade spot. That's a different thing. Because but in terms of starting in kindergarten, they were only taking in the zone. But like if somebody moves away and there's a spot and it's really close to that October deadline, as you know, the end of October when they do the count, I think, what is it, like $6,000 or $7,000 per kid? They'll fill it. Jenny will fill it with a kid from Brooklyn if it's, right close to the deadline versus leaving that open.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll also add that I have 3 kids at 150, 5th grade, 2nd grade, and pre-K. And in 5th grade, I mean, we have kids coming from Roosevelt Island, Chelsea,
but again,
and they all started in kindergarten. Like they were not, because it's a district school in that I don't know if the District 2 and Community Board 1, if that area overlaps, but it's for District 2. So it covers the a wide area, and that's what we do see in 5th grade. And a lot of, yes, but I agree that a majority of the kids are from downtown. But this also includes Lower East Side, Chinatown, and other areas, not just Financial District, Battery Park City, and Tribeca. And so, but it sounds like that's going to change once the school moves to Trinity Place. That's sort of what I'm hearing.
That was the agreement. Yeah, that was the agreement with the elected officials, is that it would become another zoned school.
Yes.
Right, Trish? Isn't that that's your understanding too,
that
right?
Was not my understanding when we reached an agreement with Vornado 3 years ago, because when we had the PTA meeting, when Jenny discussed and showed us pictures of the mock-up of the new school and whatnot, I mean, that she reiterated that it would be a choice school. And so, I mean, if it's changing because of it's something that it wasn't communicated to the parents, that's, one thing. But I just wanted to say that it is surprising to me to hear that. That's all.
I think that you've missed, to be honest with you, I think the idea of PS 150 being a choice school has been misinterpreted. So I think even though there are people that go there that come from Roosevelt Island in the Lower East Side, it's only if they have exhausted the people that want to come from the neighborhood. That is true for every public school. I don't know if you're aware of this, but PS 234, when they were under enrolled last year, they took a bunch of kids from Brooklyn. So it can happen. That's important to say, that all schools take variances. if they don't fill their school with the kids from the zone who want to go. Hold on one second. Okay, honey, I'm sorry. So I think that, I don't think you're going to see a huge difference is what I'm saying. But yes, they will come out and either call it what they called it before, where they take the kids in the zone first and then they put the rest in a lottery. That's PS 150's model right now. And that is a different structure than a zoned school. So, how the constitution of any school actually depends mostly on overcrowding. I lived in the neighborhood when PS 234 actually took 20% variances from other neighborhoods, if you can imagine that. And then my children walked into 8 classroom kindergarten at that school. So it really does depend. And my guess is that right now we are not experiencing overcrowding downtown. So when the DOE looks at that, they might propose that we have a different admissions model for 150 or for the Trinity Place School. It's very possible that they could do that. And that's why I think we need to wait and see what we're dealing with in September or October before, hold on one moment. That's why I think we should maybe wait until October to see what we're dealing with. But I don't think there's a cause for concern in this department is what I'm saying, Gyro. You know what I mean? And well, of
No,
course,
I do. Thank you for the information and
sure.
No, that's helpful.
And I think it's nice, Tricia, to explore the idea of, the hard part is I don't think any schools want to lose enrollment, but I think it's only fair to parents that might live so close to this new school to say to them, listen, if you want to, pull your kid out of Peck-Slip or 276 and come to this school, it's okay. But, I don't know how Maggie's going to feel about that, or, what I'm saying, the principals might not like that concept.
They might not like that concept, which is why they generally default to zones.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to impinge on their zone. When we rezone this, it is probably going to take some of Maggie's kids and 276's kids at a time where that might not be exactly as exciting as it was when the school was approved. At that time, they couldn't wait for this to open because they were busting at the seams. So, I know and I hope and I trust that we have been very, very good at advocating for the things that make most sense for our community when that time comes. And I expect that we'll do exactly the same come the fall and come up with a proposal for a structure that best suits our needs here. And, in its best case scenario, it will include all voices, the PS 150 community, the voices of our local community, our representatives, as well as the DOE. I have experienced them, more over this past 10 years to be more collaborative than they were at the time when they zoned PS 276 and Spruce Street. So that's good news. And I am excited for 150 to be able to maintain their curriculum, and I'm really interested to hear more from Michael Mirasola when he can give it to us. So I might know by the full board, and if I do, then I will make an announcement when I give that report.
Tricia, thank you so much for confirming that they're going to keep with the curriculum. I think that was one question I had. And it sounds like it's basically going to be a logistical issue when it comes to the actual specifics of the rezoning. One question related to that, which Wendy touched on, is that obviously 250 Water and the development there and the timing of the development there, which is directly across the street from Peck-Slip, is a huge issue. And I know that there's probably been a lot of flight from families from that school because of that issue. And I think that is going to definitely be something that is going to affect the enrollment of Trinity, because if people have an option to go somewhere with a building that is new, and a school that is established and but also still has a great track record versus one that's across the street from a years-long construction site, that's going to greatly impact where people are going to, if they have a choice, decide to send their children.
Yes, well, I mean, they haven't confirmed that the whole Trinity Place school is going to have a 150 curriculum. You know, this is the other thing they haven't confirmed, whether 150 is going to co-locate with another school in that space. So we're waiting to hear that as well. There's a lot to be decided about this school that has yet to be decided.
This like a
And
school, is that what you're implying?
yes, they have not confirmed, Wendy, that they're going to turn the whole school into 150. Not that
Wow.
they won't, they might, but
Hmm.
they just haven't confirmed it, not to me at least.
Oh, I think that's the assumption that all of us PS 150 parents are going in under.
That it could very well happen. But, I have learned over my time here that
Yeah,
until
you never
they
know.
confirm it, they could surprise you. And we've been very good at advocating on behalf of PS 150. If there's the demand for more seats for 150's curriculum, I can't see any reason why it would not happen. The only thing I would imagine is that it will be a consideration if they expect kids will be moving from one school to the other, like you just talked about, from Peck Slip. That would obviously be more complicated if that was the case. However, I guess when that time comes, we can have those discussions. And if PS 150 feels as though they have enough demand for filling that school, then that would be a really strong argument for why it should continue. So, as these months pass, we'll have more and more discussions about this, and it would be good to start thinking about it because it'll come up quickly come September, October.
You know, Trisha, what else is going to come up quickly is actually, we haven't talked about this in a long time, but that lobby is going to be logistically difficult to get kids in and out of the building. As we talked about, gosh, I mean, how many meetings do we go to? Because there's no cafeteria on the first floor. There's no big meeting space on the first floor. I mean, you know this better than anyone. I think we need to come back to that at some point again to, say, what is the plan? What's the lineup situation? I mean, I know we got the sidewalk extended and there's some other good things that we advocated for, but I don't think it's all figured out yet. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think it is either. I think one of the things I was thinking about that we can talk about, it doesn't have to be an original design to happen, is if they don't figure out the insides and it is like a walk into an elevator bank situation, that they can cover half of that courtyard now. Because we have the ability now to have that square footage on the south side. So they could provide cover in that arrival courtyard, which would make up for the lack of lobby. It would still be cold in the winter, but it certainly would be better than being open to the elements and be relatively easy to do.
I think we should start advocating for that really early on because there's going to be a very difficult, all of us talked about this over and over again. And the answer was you get what you get and you don't get upset.
Yeah, well, we don't do well with that answer.
Exactly.
And we've been very successful pushing back on that answer. And, I was really pleased that they gave us that south sidewalk because that's going to add 1,500 square feet to the 600 square foot courtyard, which will be more realistic in terms of the arrival of those many families. But I think, we need to not stop there, Wendy, like you said, and go for the covering. I think that would make an enormous difference.
So far in the future, we don't really need to figure this all out right now, but it's bringing back all those talked about. What was that, 3 years ago? I mean, 2 years, 3 years ago. So, I mean, time flies, right? So I think now is the appropriate time to start advocating for a covered lineup place on the south side there.
Yeah.
Trisha, there's an
Yes.
attendee who has their hand raised up by the name of Kat Saka.
Sure.
Go ahead. Kat, can you hear us?
She's still muted, Jen. There you go.
Kat, are you there with us?
She's not muted.
We're waiting for her to sort out her tech issues. Quick question, is there a place where we can go to see the current plans?
That's a good question. I'll ask Mike when he calls. They sometimes will publish it somewhere on the School Construction Authority's site. You can poke around there and see if you can find it. They have a section for things in progress.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be really good, especially Trisha, as you know, that's going to be the last gymatorium type of thing, which compared to what PS 150 has right now, it's great. But as you know, it's going to be
a gymatorium at Trinity Place.
What is
They
that?
separated it.
Oh, that's right, because we got that other room, that other funny room. You're right, right? We split it up. That was the victory, but it's still up on the high floors. It's not on lower floors.
It is on the high floors. The gym's on, I think, 6.
Yeah,
So,
but it have a little update and a review because it has been, I don't know exactly, but what was that? I think it's been at least 3 years since we've
it
talked
has.
about this.
I can have Michael come and see if he, I don't know if they, I'm sure they have it in some shape or form, whether or not it's presentable. And it'll be nice that it's virtual because he's more likely to have something he can put on a screen. So why don't I ask him to come pay us a visit in July or something and do an update on the design.
Yeah, and we can invite the PS 150 community to log in.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Trisha, Kat left a question directly to me in the chat. They asked, is there a way to provide feedback and community input on the options for the school?
Yeah, they can just they can send it via us, or they can send it directly to the Department of Education and the School Construction Authority. And the contact information is on both of those websites, and you can always weigh in on what you think. Sometimes it's better to wait for the actual sort of charrettes and the community engagement when they're focused on it. You know, they traditionally have brought these things to us if they're considering something as different as this. But certainly if they want to make a preemptive strike, they can do that by contacting the School Construction Authority and the DOE. And at the DOE, it would be Karen Lindmark's office. Anybody else? Okay, cool. We'll move right along to our last item for tonight. I was really hoping to get this whole resolution done in advance of the meeting. I did get a lot of it done. I have feelers out for some more data, but I am very concerned about this situation with people not getting the vaccine vis-a-vis September. Everyone keeps telling me that my concerns are unfounded, that definitely we're going back. Of course, we're going back. I am not seeing it in combination with the low percent, considerably low percentage of teachers that have been vaccinated with the good availability of vaccine sites, and combined with the lack of improvements made at the schools that were of concern, of greatest concern, regarding ventilation. We have schools whose windows don't open. We have schools whose ventilation systems haven't been upgraded. And my mind jumped ahead to September with that combination, and someone coming in at the last moment saying, guess what, we can't really do this after all because not all of our buildings are ready and we still don't have everybody vaccinated. And so we're going to do blended learning again. Blended learning for our family ended up being taking your computers to school and logging into another remote session at that school in a chair that we could not leave the room all day. The same cohort stayed there while different proctors walked into the room. So the data on the effects on especially preteen and teen mental health, which are the groups that have not been able to get back into the school, are so off the roof that I am really surprised that as a country, I mean, it's a pandemic in and of itself. 80% are reporting increased mental health issues with teenagers. We have 600,000 of our students still learning remotely. We have 7 out of 10 teenagers themselves reporting that they're struggling with mental health issues because of the pandemic. More than half of those have said that they're experiencing anxiety. 45 said excess stress. 42 identified as depressed. And so when I look at these statistics, and I expect more data to be coming in, which is why, like I said, I haven't finished this yet, combined with the fact that the CDC has relaxed the distancing specifications from 6 to 3 feet, which they were careful to say. That recommendation was made with a bunch of, parameters, one of which is that the ventilation is functional in each of our schools to maintain a healthy facility. So the 3 feet is only 3 feet if we have windows that open and a ventilation system that's working. Otherwise, it's going to remain 6 feet. So we have a decision we need to make. And I, for one, am ready. I would, like I said, I still have more to do on this resolution, but I'm still going to put it before you for discussion. I would like to pass it, but it requires you to do what we've done last time and for me to finish it and run it past you between now and the full board. So I'd like to bring that to you for discussion. I've given you the statistics that I have thus far, but I'm comfortable enough to say that I would like to pass a resolution that calls on Governor Cuomo to mandate this vaccine. I looked at what's involved in mandating a vaccine, and we have a mandated vaccine situation for things like hepatitis and scarlet fever and the measles and the mumps before our children can set foot into a school. And I think that by mandating it, it could flesh out a lot of things. I think we will get a more realistic idea of how many teachers have a physical health disability that prevents them from taking the vaccine, at which point we can support them by, giving them, partial salary, the guarantee of a job, whatever else is necessary to make their lives whole during this time until they can safely return to a school building. But also make sure that our kids can all go back full time. If we go on to year 2, I am really, really concerned for our children. And we will have, in my view, a different pandemic on our hand. So that is what I'm putting before you, and I'm opening the room for discussion.
So Tricia, this is Wendy. I'm very supportive of that in part because, we really debated going private this year, and that's not everybody's situation. But I think if it stays the way it is, there will be a tremendous amount of people moving to other states or going private or leaving the school system, because the kids really need to get back to school. And I have absolutely been a supporter of before the vaccine. I don't want anyone to get sick. But now that the vaccines are available, I'm with you. Everyone should get them. And I've been hearing over and over again, I even have a reluctant relative who I'm very frustrated with, but said that, if his job demands it, that's the only way he's going to get it. So, I don't understand that thinking myself, but I think that's important. Obviously there are some people who can't get it for medical reasons, but I think the vast majority of people just need to be told, like, this is for the benefit of all. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. Thank you.
Yes, I think there is definitely that thinking. And there are people that, feel as though if it's an option, that they are comfortable, and they'll become more comfortable as people around them get vaccinated, because their chances will fall. And it's very easy to get into this thinking like, oh, well, they did it for me, I don't really need to do it. And yet decisions are going to be made based on the amount of people that are vaccinated. And so if we find that an unmandated vaccine is bringing in 70% of our teachers, they're not going to open these schools. And I think we just need to face that and to say, we have to decide. It's like your child cannot go to kindergarten unless they have these inoculations. And there's a lot of parents that were against vaccines. We have to remember that too. And some parents went to schools where vaccines, there are private schools that don't require them. I didn't know that, but there apparently are. And but I think that for the most part, we all just sort of got on board. As a new parent, I remember being concerned about vaccines because it was all that people talked about in the baby mommy groups. And then when I did some research, I realized that the risks were actually, pretty low of there being problems. And the gain was incredibly high. Scarlet fever is very dangerous. And measles and mumps are really dangerous to pregnant mothers. So the epidemic that would happen if those diseases circulated back through our schools would be concerning. And I think that, especially with the variants that we're starting to see with this vaccine, that it would be important to we're going to have to take more than one, is my guess. And the second one will build on the first one. It won't replace the first one, from what I'm told. And so for me, that sets up a situation where a vaccine mandate could be even more important. That's the data I don't have, so I want to make sure I tell you that. However, I would like to put this up for passing, and if not this month, if anybody votes the table, I'm open to hearing that. I'm open to hearing people that disagree with me, and I'm also ready to hear that you're ready to vote for it, and then I'll finish it up and send it to you. But I feel extremely concerned.
Yeah, this is Judy. I echo both Trisha and Wendy's thoughts. I think we're at a critical moment. We've had so much exodus from the public schools, from the state, from the city. We're going to be about a year and, I don't know, 3-4 months into remote learning. I know that we're sort of partially back, and I think there's been varying degrees of success. I think, from a high school perspective, I agree with what Trisha said. It's better than nothing, but and I have kids in 3 different high schools. There's some enrichment activities in the afternoon that may or may not be mandatory. And I think, there's an interesting catch-22 happening. So it's like there's sort of extra school for those that choose hybrid learning, at least for some of these high schools. And, sometimes there are enough teachers to be there, and sometimes there aren't. And I know that, one of my kids went to school the other day and there weren't enough teachers and they played board games. So you have this odd catch-22 where there's a lot of families or maybe kids saying, what is the upside for me to go to hybrid learning? Because it's not mandatory and they're not really doing anything. And then what happens is the schools are saying, nobody's choosing hybrid learning. Nobody wants to go to school. And what it really amounts to is that, like, these are kids, and, kids need to be told to go to school, right? I mean, that's really what it's about. It's like, as a kid, it's kind of like, I don't want to go to school. If I can find any excuse not to go to school, I'm not going to go to school. But, we know that kids need to go to school for a lot of reasons. They need to see their teachers in person. They're more engaged. They're socially isolated. There's, obviously so many mental health issues. And so, that's, I think, why we've seen this mass exodus. And I just think that we're at a moment where this has to happen. We have to have our kids back in the fall. And I think, over the next couple of months, there's going to be a lot more people deciding what to do. And if they have an inkling that maybe, it's not going to be back to at least some degree of normal in the fall, they're just going to jump ship. And I can't say I blame them. These kids need normalcy. They need learning. They need face-to-face with their teachers. They need to be challenged. They need to be motivated, and they need to see their friends. They need to be in after-school activities. They need to be in sports. I mean, these are all, it's a complete life that was lost for these kids. So I think, we should set an example. People should get vaccinated. It's for the good of everybody. And if we can set an example here, I think that, maybe that sets a good example for other employers, for example. We I think have a responsibility to make sure that people are healthy and that all of us are protected. And that means that everybody has to get vaccinated. So yes, I would support the resolution. My only question would be, what is it going to say? I like to make sure I know what it's going to say before I commit to it.
Of course. I mean, I'm going to read the whereases that I have thus far, and then I'm going to tell you the ones I don't have. One of the concerns of someone who I discussed this with was that if you pass a resolution mandating the vaccine and forget this school condition, like the ventilation issues and the tech issues, you're going to push communities that don't have resources uncomfortably. And so this will be dependent on that they bring these schools up to, code in terms of the ventilation, the access of fresh air, and also delivering technology, which to me is just unbelievable that this still has not happened. I certainly understand those in transient housing. It's very tough to reach them. So a lot of the families they haven't reached at all. Certainly I understand that. If the families haven't reached out to the schools and their kids just disappeared, it's hard to know whether they're even still here, right? But the students that are actually, there are students that are enrolled that don't have the right technology, which to me is unconscionable. And so I am prepared to do a deep dive into why these things are not being executed. And for now, I'm making them a contingency in this resolution. So with that, whereas on March 19th, the CDC has reduced the distancing specifications from 6 feet to 3 feet between students in classrooms. And whereas on that same day, the CDC reiterated that ventilation is an important component in maintaining healthy facilities. And whereas the NYC DOE has had over a year to bring buildings into compliance in terms of ventilation. And whereas many of our New York City schools are still not compliant in terms of ventilation, a year after COVID forced the closure of our schools, and is one of the reasons the DOE and the UFT have given as to why schools cannot yet fully open. And whereas Mayor de Blasio announced that all New York City students would have the opportunity to return to school in March, only to then offer full-time school to students in K-5 classrooms. And whereas 600,000 of our students are still learning remotely, and whereas a significant number of our students who are in the classroom are still learning remotely in that classroom, whereas a survey conducted by Harris Poll on May 7th, 7 out of 10 teenagers self-reported that they were struggling with mental health issues because of the pandemic, More than half said they'd experienced anxiety. 45% felt excess stress. 42 identified as depressed. 80% of teenagers, it has been found that 80% of teenagers from parent surveys have experienced increased or debilitating levels of anxiety, stress, and depression. So from here, I'm going to get the statistics on the lack of technology that is still happening. I don't have solid data on that. I'm trying to find it. I am also going to do more research onto the history of what mandating a vaccine involves. I want to make sure that I have everything covered as far as that's concerned, because we're asking for it. So I want to know, what that process looked like for hepatitis and for scarlet fever and tuberculosis and all those. And then that will be the resolution that we, therefore be it resolved that we call upon Governor Cuomo, whose job it is, I understand, to mandate the vaccine immediately, or as soon as possible. And also to take care of our teachers who have health issues. My daughter has one. Her track coach, who also teaches Spanish, absolutely cannot have this vaccine. She has an immune disorder, and her physician had said that he just doesn't feel confident at all with her having this vaccine. I think teachers like her should be taken care of until such time they can return to the classroom and be guaranteed a job. So that's what it will say, everyone.
So can you clarify that you mean both teachers or school staff and
school staff as well,
students as well? Or are you exclusively looking at school staffing?
Yes, I mean, Rose, I didn't even think of that. Thank you. Our students that cannot get the vaccine, because, that's still a thing, even if the teachers all have it. It
What
would
was,
be,
sorry, Trisha, what was the last whereas you just said?
the technology and
No.
then the mandating of vaccines, looking into the process of what that entails, both from a timeline, logistical standpoint. If I'm asking them to mandate it, I'd like to have a little bit more information as to make sure that can happen with our request, basically. And that we don't have to involve, it'll probably just make me involve more people that we would have to go through to get it to happen. But from what I'm told right now, it is a state decision. The governor decides, not the federal government, which really surprises me. So that's why I need to do more research. If it is the federal government, I will call upon both of them. But, and maybe this is the first step that we call upon the governor.
But call upon the governor to do what? To mandate the vaccine.
Mandate the vaccine in New York
Okay.
State. Yeah.
Got it.
And I will add students, to Rose's point, to the exemptions. Whereas.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by that? Which exemptions? Sorry.
Exemptions for people that are unable to have the vaccine because of health reasons.
Got it.
To make sure and make everyone whole, that we could be excluding by requiring them to be vaccinated to go to school.
Got it.
I mean, that teacher of my daughter's hasn't been outside. Like, that's how she's that concerned. And I think if that's the case, we obviously have a situation where we have to make sure that and it's not that some remote learning can't happen, but we understand that blended learning did not work. And so we can't, just have this be a question mark, in my view, as we move towards September. I think if you have, 95% of the kids back in school, you're then defaulting to an in-person curriculum, so the teachers don't have to write too, And I think that explanation was given to me as recently as this morning when I asked why they were unable to deliver any synchronous learning whatsoever on the 2 days students were in. And they said they absolutely just cannot make it happen with the teachers they have available and the way that they have to construct it. So if that's the case, we have to take them on their word and put everybody back in school, period. No blended learning doesn't work. It just isn't. There's parents have overwhelmingly said it doesn't work. The students have overwhelmingly said that it's not like being in school. We just had that discussion. And so we need to render justice to this situation for everybody's sake. I mean, the teachers, it's a disaster for everybody. So
yeah, and one of the things, Trisha, you could add if you wanted in the intro is, you know, all the parents that can't return to work or have had to, I don't have the statistics on this, but have had to quit their jobs due to this situation. And I understand that it's really disproportionately affected women. So, you know, it's something to think about if you wanted to add it. I don't think it's necessary, but I do think it's a big problem.
yes, you know what? I could add it because the recent data on the 280,000 jobs that were offered, did you hear this? That were added? So the word is, and again, this is data I'm still working on, but the word is that there is disappointment in the amount of jobs that were added in the US this last month. It was like 280,000. They thought it'd be much higher because we're bouncing back from the pandemic. And they said almost all of those jobs were men.
Interesting.
So, you know, we're sending women back, you know, decades. I mean, there's no way that I could have been at the office with my kids here home. I mean, like, I'm so fortunate that I work for myself. You know, my husband's a healthcare worker. What if we were both healthcare workers? Oh my God. So I look at this situation and there's no wonder that 800,000 women left the job force. It's just, we can't allow it. We have to do everything we can. I mean, certainly if we didn't have a vaccine, then we all just sit on our hands until such time where we can provide a safe return to work and school. But I can go uptown and go to yoga class right now, inside, and to my gym, and to the grocery store. You know, and I'm at home, and so are my friends, some of which had full-time corporate jobs who had to quit them. And we're home because our kids aren't back at school. This is just, to me, you know, I think it's time for action. And, you know, I may find something along the way that, you know, I may reach back out to you. But for me, all the research I've done thus far, I can't see why we can't mandate this vaccine and ensure that we all walk through that front door in September.
Just wanted to jump in for a minute. Would it be possible to actually like administer vaccines in schools? I'm just curious. Like,
sure, but you know, yes, Taylor would be the answer, but I don't think access is the problem because I don't know about the rest of you. I got a vaccine for my daughter the day before. I haven't had any reports of access issues since January. Has anyone else? Yeah.
really?
But certainly if someone were to say that they did and that would be most comfortable to them, Taylor, then we should do it.
Right, just like, you know, they're already at school, might make it easier, might be that thing that pushes them to, you know, just go ahead and say yes. So
I know that I have a daughter in private school, and her school had someone come and deliver COVID tests and offered vaccines there. And that company was reimbursed by the government, which I thought was interesting. It was private school. So there's no reason we couldn't do it. It's kind of like a mobile city MD. So that could be good to tuck away, you know, if we are faced with that come September. Anyone else? Looking for hands up. Still Talon. Nobody else? Okay. So do we have a quorum? Yes.
Trisha, yeah. But just
Um,
to update you, Jeff and Bob had to leave early.
Okay. So do you, Jen, can you just go ahead and take us to a vote on this? And then what I'm going to do is circulate this next week in advance of the meeting for review. And at that time, if anybody on the committee doesn't feel comfortable, you can ask to postpone. I'm very amenable, but I think it will be pretty conclusive after what I find with my last couple of whereases.
Sure, I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Just first, if a member of the floor can call the question, another member second, please.
Call the question.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, Trisha?
Yes.
Right here. Sarah Castle?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Daron?
Daron votes yes.
Thank you. Talon?
Yes.
Okay. Judith? Judith?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. And Andrew?
Yes.
Okay, Sarah E is not here. Okay, and the motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. I will be circulating this soon. And thank you for everything tonight. It was a good meeting. And
Thank you, Trisha.
I'll also hope to give an update on the Trinity Place School at the full board.
Thanks, Trisha. Thank you so much, Trisha.
Take care. Talk soon.